Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a double top 16 breakdown for both of the treasure cups that happened around the world this past weekend. We have Tax Oceania treasure cup right here, as well as the Carta Magica treasure cup that happened here in North America. And real quick before we get started, first, if you guys do appreciate these videos, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. It takes a lot to get all these deck lists, put them together, and make them really editable and searchable. So please, if you guys appreciate that, please hit that like and subscribe button, and check out my website. So both of these are web pages of my website, which you can get all these deck lists and also every single treasure cup and regional that's ever happened for the One Piece card game, at least outside of Japan, will be on there too. So if you guys want to see all of that information, that is on my website, and also just links for everything else, because these were both pretty sizable events. We can look at the TAC one. So 339 players with 8 rounds of Swiss Best of 1. It is also streamed on a double sleeve, so you guys can check out the content there if you want to see the matches, as well as the Carta Magical one, 476 players, 9 rounds of Swiss Best of 1, and tournament VOD right here on the Carta Magica channel. And also real shout outs to Carta Magica for letting myself and Brian do the commentary for it. A lot of fun, and really do appreciate that opportunity as well. But going on into these top 16 breakdowns, we can look at both the leaders as well as the leader breakdowns. So these are all the leaders that were brought to the event in general. And if you look at it as well, like if you look at this top 16, a couple things to note. One, Newgate's hasn't been doing as well as it kind of did at the beginning of the format. We see that only 2 for each of these events, which is pretty interesting. Zoro probably still the most popular of the red leaders right now, but Trafalgar Law getting some reps in there too, and also Useless Kid getting there as well, with no Kinemons in either of the top 16s, which I think is really interesting there too. In general, the Oceania event had more diversity in the leaders, which this is a pretty healthy looking pie chart, and just based on leaders and also the colors represented and everything else. I think that's really neat. And then also here maybe a little bit more centralized, but we did have 5 Zoros, 4 Laws, 4 Captain Kids, 2 Newgates, and 1 Emporio on this side too. And you can also just see like for the ratios too. So there were the same amount of kids and Kinemon, which is pretty interesting. That 4 of these kids got into the top 16 as no Kinemons as well. And then also just moderately the same. One thing is that there's a lot of Smoker players in Oceania too, and with 2 of them getting into the top 16, I think that does help the reps for that a little bit more. But just like the conversion rate for like the Kinemon's pretty rough, as well as like the Newgate's not as good as it used to be either, which is interesting. So also both events were won by Trafalgar Laws too, which I think is interesting too. And lastly, with talking about Useless Kid, we did have kind of a newer form, a newer version of the deck, at least newer in North America, or at least the English meta, where there's the film version as well, which we'll talk about that as well. It's been known as an archetype, but it's never really topped. This is the first weekend, and it happened in both events that the film version of Useless Kid topped too, which I think is interesting. Anyways, we're going to go over the top placing deck list between both events. We're going to jump between both these events too for some of these leaders and archetypes and everything else. And we're going to start off with our first place list from both of them. It's Trafalgar Law for both again. So we do have Braydon's first place Trafalgar Law here, as well as Duncan's first place here. And looking at Braydon's list, this one's a little bit more atypical from what we've been seeing here, at least in North America. Most of the Law list, I will say, are running at least half the same cards. Otama, Makino, Tony Chopper, Beige, Bonnie, Nami, Dadan, and also the 5-cost Trafalgar Laws. Most of them are running these at full copies of 4. Sometimes you get like a copy less, like we see here, but that's kind of like the standard sauce for that. And then you do have some choices here for Braydon's list. No event cards, which I think is a little bit interesting, and then adding the Basil Hawkins. Only 1 copy of it, but this can be kind of very strong if it's able to stick on the board. It is very, very easy to hit this with Jet Pistol at times too, so you do have to be careful for that cost investment there, but again, very strong. And then also like Zoros and Rush, like a little bit more Rush than we normally see as well, but that can be strong. And if you aren't running event cards as well, you don't have to worry about as like you can run clunkier cards like this Luffy and Zoro, just for the fact of that. And Luffy still, I think, is a good card. Some decks just have a really hard time answering with it, and it pairs very, very nicely with the restand from this Trafalgar Law. Being able to get like 2 swings that you can't block from your opponent can't block is can be really great at closing out games there. So anyways, this is Braydon's list, and also we have Duncan's list, which I think is a little bit more standard for what we've been seeing here in North America, with a top end including like an X-Drake. I think is a little bit of a cheekier pick too. We haven't seen this all the time, but Radical Beam and Jet Pistol, two more common event cards that I'd say like Jet Pistol's been less popular and Radical Beam's been a little bit more popular in these as well. And also the Star Deck Zoro, which I honestly thought was a bad card for a long time, and I think like 1 or 2 copies, more than 2, you're kind of a little silly with it, but just the fact that it's easily like a 7k for 1 Dawn is nice, as well as for only the 3 cost investment. And also it's a 6k on your opponent's turn too, which can be a little bit difficult for removal outside Jet Pistol, so you can't just like Otama Vista it, you have to get a little bit more oomph. So it's nice for what it is. Most of the time when you play like a Zoro, this like the Rush Zoro on turn 2, you normally don't want to attack with it because you don't want to give your opponent resources, so to have like a better investment in this one I think is kind of strong too. And the fact that you can use the Trafalgar Law on this one too is very good there. So this is Duncan's list. Congrats to both of our Trafalgar Law winners on this weekend. And moving right along, we do have Bowen's second place Smoker for the TAC event, and this is a little bit more of an interesting build of Smoker as well. A couple of interesting choices. Mostly right out the gate is just the add of all of these event cards. We are running 10 whole event cards, including Ice Age, which if you don't remember what this one does, main give up to one of your opponent's characters -5 to their cost during this turn, which can be a little bit nice to pair with maybe Smoker, or like getting like a like the double attack from this. If your opponent's not expecting it, you can get like a really good double attack swing there. Pairs up kind of good with Kuzan, or maybe even like a Kobe. So 3 plus 5 is 8, so you can use this to get rid of like a useless kid pretty easily too. Sometimes you can also use it for like if you don't like an Edward Newgate on your opponent's board, you can use this. So 5 or less with an Ice Age. So for 7 Dawn, you can remove any card in the game, which is really great. Obviously, you do have to discard 2 cards, but also it does have a good security trigger of KO up to one of your opponent's characters at a cost of 3 or less. So by and large, just a really interesting tech card for that too. Great Eruption as well. We don't see this one as much, but just having just so many additional ways to give minus cost to stuff in this deck means you can get some advantage from it. And then pretty much from there, kind of standard. I do like the 3-drop army we do have here, which is not as common, where like Smoker is like hit or miss if you like this card or not, but I've decided I've kind of like it. So can be KO'd by effects, which is quite nice. And then also this gets plus 2k power during the battle. So this can pair with Ice Age at times too. And like for 1, you get a 2k boost, which is neat. And then also I like Garp for this one too. Some people aren't running, but I think 2 copies of this guy can help you with some of the removal options you need to do also. So anyways, this is Bowen's list. Congratulations for their second place with the Smoker. And then moving along, we do have our Zoro. So this is Richard's second place from the Carta regional, and I don't have much to say about this one. I do like the 4 Mogara. I think that's this is obviously the most you can run, but I do like the idea of this one. This is like pretty slow to the ground. No event cards outside of 2 Jet Pistols, and then just pretty much 4s, including like the Nami that gets the +1 Rested Dawn, which I think this could be a really good card to pair with Newgate at times, especially if you do like a double Newgate in one turn. Being able to use this with that can be strong, and all the other ways you like it just gets like an additional 1k, so I think that can help you in that regard too. And if you pretty much want to put a Dawn underneath your Zoro every turn, so being able to do that on top of being able to use like Newgate's effect, it can pay some dividends. It's obviously a very removable card, and you can't search it with the other 1-drop Nami, but I think it can be strong, and then everything else just pretty strong as well. So anyways, congratulations to Richard for their second place finish here. And then we have our Doffy. So this is Joseph's third place list from the TAC regionals, and this is a moderately standard version of Doffy. We've pretty much decided, I mean, you don't have a lot of variety where what you can do with this deck anyways, and the fact that you have to just play a bunch of your 7 Warlords. We do have like the Jinbei, so I think this has gone down maybe a little bit in price, but 2 or 3 copies of this, if you play this really early, your opponent's going to have a hard time answering this. If they have something like a Law deck, or also like Zoro has a hard time against this card at time if played early, because they just can't answer it all the time, which is kind of rough. And that's kind of it. The top end is 3 Mihawks and also 1 Doffy as well, and then 3 copies of Love Beam. So in general, like this deck is really a lot of user dependent, I think, as well. The deck list is pretty understood in a lot of ways, and congratulations to Joseph for their 3rd place finish here. Next up, we have our Eustace Kid block. So first off, we do have our Isaac's film list, which I did do an interview with him as well. It's going to be linked in the description as well on my webpage. So he's going to give some more insight for that one in general. But it's really, really cool. And again, we had between both events, 3 of the film decks get into the top 16. So really cool to see that, again, like a deck that hasn't been run at all. It hasn't been seen at all in any of these events. Just popped up in 2 different events on the same weekend, which I think is really neat. So I do think like the deck building is moderately straightforward. At least you just play as bunch of these film cards as you want. Also running the new Bart promo, which rip your wallet if you don't have this, because that kind of exploded in price after this weekend. And I'll be honest, like this card's just neat. It's not I would say super good. It is searchable off Nami, which is important too, since we don't have that many cards, but it's just okay. I'm not going to say like it's worth the price, and it's not worth like the extension for it. Sometimes it can work out. So specifically if you have like your 7-drop Luffy and then you attack with it and then you just play Bartholomew, cool. All right, awesome. You get to restand your blocker at 7k. It's hard to do anything with. Sure, that's fine. And then your opponent's going to want to swing into this too. So that's like absorbs 2 attacks at times. So it's kind of nice, but I don't think it's like super important. I don't think you don't have to spend the money to get this card. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's that important. Some people might disagree with that, but my basic opinion is it's good, but not changing on that side. And then just like the amount of event cards, 8 event cards in Kid, which means that you have a lot of chances. Luffy's a fantastic card to use with Paradise Waterfall as well, which is nice. And Punk Gibson, very strong too. So obviously the combo with this deck, if you haven't seen it too, is you play Luffy and then you use Luffy to play Brook, and then you can use Brook to play either an Usopp or Nami. And so on turn 8 you can do this. You get Nami's effect on the on play, which lets you look top 3 for more film cards, which means that you're able to draw an additional card too. So for 8 you play 3 bodies, which is essentially 14k worth of, or 14 Dawn for 8 or 7, and then the draw for 1 Dawn. So very strong to clear the board. And I think also Kid is a deck that you really are okay with, like sometimes like pitching early to get like some double removal. It's a good leader to not build a board until you do your big combo effect. I think that's good there. So anyways, congrats to Isaac, and also just in general all of our film deck players. It's really cool to see all you guys top this weekend. We also do have like the more traditional list. So this is from Carta, this is from TAC. This is James' Supernova build, and again we've been seeing this pretty consistently. I mean, this is strictly a set 1 deck. If you haven't noticed this is only set 1 cards and Star Deck 2, the first wave of Star Deck. So nothing new from this. I'm pretty sure I've inputted this list for a couple times since set 1 dropped, but it's still a goodie. 8-drop Kid is still a very good card in a lot of ways. 7-drop Kid, I've been kind of leaning around this guy. Like I don't like it as much. It's fine, but it's not super good. I feel like for the investment all the time, but it still can be good. Trafalgar Law, crazy good with bouncing your motto and Raizo and just everything else. Strong deck, and choosing to play for Punk Gibson as well. I think more and more people are on Punk Gibson. I think it's a good card right now, especially since it can go for like a 2-for-1 against some of the low to the ground decks, and or get rid of a blocker if they've set it up and they've kept it around for a long time too. So that's this list. Congratulations to James for their finish here. 3 more lists, including our Newgate block. So we do have no Moby Dick Newgate's top this weekend, but we do have Carta's. This is Philip's Straw Hat version of the deck. Don't have a lot to say to this. Congratulations for Philip for it, but I've strictly inputted, I think, this exact deck like a dozen times or so. It's really understood what it is. It's incredibly strong as well. I think more people kind of know how to play against Newgate. I think that's something that carried the deck early in the meta as well. It still can perform, but it is also a very widely known deck, and it is a little bit of RNG, and for just if you see your pieces when you need them, since there isn't really any searchers outside of Nami fighting Straw Hats. Like you win pretty much if you if you see your 9-drop on time and consistently. And if you don't do that, then you kind of have a hard time at times. But anyways, this is their list. Congratulations to Philip for there. And then also we have more of a hybrid version, which this is, I think, been the more popular of Newgate in the last couple weeks. Again, Newgate hasn't been doing amazing compared to what it was at the beginning of the meta, but this is Kenneth's. This is 7th place from the TAC event, and I call it hybrid because normally when you look at a Newgate list, if it's running Nami, it's probably a Straw Hat build, and if it's running Moby Dick, it is usually the Moby Dick build. And so having both of them and having like the Straw Hat package as well as just kind of the upper end for the Newgate stuff, I usually call it the hybrid. So I think this is kind of like the good build. Usually, and it's traditionally you see only 3 copies of Moby Dick too, which is another kind of indicator to that in my mind. You don't have to see this every time, and sometimes you can just be a strict like Straw Hat build too. But if you want to get like a little bit more finishing power against some archetypes, and I do like Marco. Marco is really good in this deck. Even if you're just running Marco and a couple other of your Whitebeard Pirates, there's a really good blocker that can help you just extend the game a lot of the time too. So Newgate's good. I don't think that's silly to say. Again, I've been liking the hybrid build a little bit more compared to Straw Hat. Maybe it's just because it's newer, but it's been good. And congratulations to Kenneth for their finish. And to wrap it up, we do have Justin's 5th place Emporio from the Carta Magica event. And I honestly don't have a lot to say about this deck either. It's kind of like Doffy. I think like Emporio and Doffy are just really similar to me in the sense that they have like these draw mechanics, but you have to play specifically one archetype to do so. We don't really have a really good generic blue leader. We kind of started at Crocodile, but it hasn't been super good. And I think it has a weak matchup against red a lot of the time, which is probably what's holding it back more than not. But this is a good deck. It's a lot of sequencing, a lot of playing the things correctly. And honestly, again, you don't have a lot of choice for building it. The one thing I'd say is that there's no event cards in this one. There's not even new comma land, which means sometimes you got to be careful that like Mihawk isn't like stuck in your hand at an inconvenient time. But or if you draw it, you pretty much have to play it unless you like use a Monkey D. Luffy to get out of it. But Emporio's been cool. It's been neat. I'm not sure if it's going to be carrying on much more into like set 3. I don't think it gets a lot of play in set 3, but I think it's a strong deck, and it can get the occasional top like it did for, again, both of these events. Both of these events it got a top, so one in both in general. So but that's going to be it for my breakdowns today. Again, if you guys made it this far in this video, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. I really would appreciate it. Make sure to check out Eggman events for these event coverages, as well as all the other ones I've done for the English meta. And that's going to be it for me. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.